Hi, it's Ricky of Moshville Times here once again. Tonight I'm delighted to be joined by Welsh death metal hardcore band Venom Prison. And tonight we've got Ash, guitarist Ash. So how are you, Ash? How are things? Have you been lucky enough to escape all this COVID nonsense?
Things haven't been too bad, to be honest. I've jumped through various jobs going through lockdown and stuff. I was working in audio originally. That was the background I came from. And then they were like, nope, that's not happening. And I was like, right, that's good. So it was, it was a hard balance with trying to keep the band doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's lots of things changing in your personal life as well. And it's just like finally starting to catch a moment to have, a short breather, but it ain't going to last long. Let's be honest. It's going to be mental before you know it again, but can't complain.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're not here to talk about COVID or anything like that. We're here to talk about all things Venom Prison. So in a couple of weeks' time, you're going to be releasing Erebos. You must be chomping at the bit to get the album out there. So how have the reviews been for it so far?
I think it's been received really positively so far. I think, even from the singles, with single 2, we tried to throw a curveball out there to see how people would react to it. And I think, judging from the response, what I've seen online, I think everybody was kind of on board with the idea of it. And I was like, well, great, that's worked.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of excited to get it out in its entirety because it's full of more of those, not similar surprises, but it has its own surprises throughout the album. I think when you finally get to sit down in that long play and hear it all fall into place, it makes a lot more sense overall, I feel.
Well, I know my colleague, Rick, he's going to be reviewing it for Moshville Times, but all the singles that you've released so far, they've been played on Moshville Radio. I play them on a Thursday night every night, and I know that they've been well received. So keep on doing what you're doing. But was there a possibility that the album could have been out earlier, but with the restrictions and everything like that, that's just put things further back? Could have been out before the end of the last year, for example?
We were toying with the idea. We were toying with it, but then we spent a lot of time in the studio. We started in December 2020, and I think we finished and wrapped up July.
Okay.
Then, so it was 6 months of not constantly, but back and forth. We were doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and it was just adjusting all the songs and kind of going back and relearning something because it was changed, and the creative process just never really stopped. So we kind of thought, we could aim for the end of the year, but that means we're going to cut our time shorter here when we're on to something that we're enjoying and something that we were discovering a lot of new things for the band itself. But I think the creative process was so, big in this case, it was too much to kind of we toyed with it and said do we go for end of last year, but we're going to not have as much studio time, and everyone was like, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling this right now. So and I'm glad we did that. I'm glad
it's coming out at the right time. Good. So do you guys immediately start creating new material after Samsara, or did you do as much touring as you could for that and then you started writing, or are some songs from Erebos quite old already?
So we kind of normally just write as we go along. We're always kind of, putting ideas down, even if they don't get used, for ages. It's just always to have that, creativity that keeps going, and we can always just have ideas that we know that we can either revisit or, and that kind of leads on to what Primeval was all about. It was essentially the re-recording of an EP and a demo, which had the chance to have the production it should have had all along. And then those 2 new songs were off the writing pool of Erebos. And even though we never said it, I think it was quite clear that, these 2 songs that sound nothing like this demo and EP come out, and you have to kind of think what's happened from Samsara to this, to what's going on in the future. And we kind of tried to make it obvious, and it was this is the start of what we're working on type thing. So it's kind of always been a constant, process.
Are you also a wee bit worried that you might lose a small part of the hardcore fans, like that they were into your much more earlier material, you might take them by surprise with what you're coming out with Erebos?
I think Erebos has got all its moments for all the things Venom Prison's ever done. And I think that was kind of the idea of Erebos. And that was also the reason of Primeval, for us to revisit, you know, what started the band and what got people into the band, and kind of that moshier element, you know, which kind of Erebos has a lot of that, especially in some of the tracks in there. There's a lot of groovy stuff going on and heavy stuff, you know, constantly happening. So I think we realized what we needed to do with it, but at the same time, we knew we had to kind of add more layers and depth to the band, you know, to grow it and evolve it, to make it more interesting. So it was finding that balance, and that balance is the hardest part, really. You kind of got to know where that limit is.
There was no blood on the walls or fisticuffs in the studio when making these arrangements then?
No, everyone was kind of really on board with it. Like, everyone was like, it was weird, because this album was probably the first album where like each member kind of like took a step forward and added something new. Like, Ben got really into synths and electronics and stuff. I've always been quite a big fan of electronics, and I was kind of helping him with a few things and adding things. And then you had Larissa, who wanted to start adding like the clean vocals and try and experiment. Then you had Joe, our drummer, who it's his first record with the band. And then you've had Mike adding more. There's a lot more like groovier bass lines and a lot more jazzy stuff going on with the bass that highlights a lot more. So I think everyone just took a step forward, and I think that is how it should be, you know, if you're going to evolve something.
So did anybody bring in their glam metal influences? Any Motley Crue coming into Venom Prison or anything?
No, that would have been with our last drummer, though. I tell you that now. We fucking loved them. So no, that luckily didn't happen.
Cool. So if somebody was coming on board just now, then how would you say Erebos sounds compared to Samsara?
It's a lot more structured. I think that's a very easy way to put Erebos, where it irons out some of the chaoticness from Samsara, and it gives it a lot more depth. And I keep saying depth and layers, but that is really what that album has, is just depth and layers. There's just things coming, you know, in all different spaces of the album that you just think, where on earth did that come from? It hasn't ever been introduced. But nothing's forced. It always naturally comes in. I don't think we overdo an element that we bring in as a layer, or we don't kind of just overuse it and saturate it, which is kind of same again. That's the balance. But I think it is a more structured, like definitely more calculated, in terms of like, we knew what we wanted to build, and we were referring to them as songs as such. So we kind of knew that we were going to be following some form of formula, which we'd try and break into our own, and we would throw in like, you know, a bit of Venom Prison in parts of the songs, that we couldn't lose that and just have that simple structure. But we always had that in mind, and we were like, how do we get around that but also have it? And that is a lot harder than writing riffs, I can tell you that.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing listening to the rest of the album, as I'm sure a good number of fans are. But talking about the band in a more business sense then, with what's been happening in the last 18 months, 2 years, has it made you look at the more business side of the band? Like, have you guys had to take on roles that you hadn't had to do before, because you wouldn't be able to go out gigging and selling? Well, you could sell merch, but selling merch when you were playing live, for example. But has it made you look at things that you hadn't normally been responsible for doing?
We've always been really hands-on with the band. Like, we've always kind of been in the pocket of it all the time when stuff needs sorting, and we're always about to sort things. But I think when lockdown came in, I think that's kind of where we started to realize, like, how long is this going to last, and what are we going to do? And the first thing that sprung to mind was, well, the one thing that we do have that we can use right now is the internet. So we're going to have to make content. We're going to have to try and just think outside the box, do some more creative stuff. We did that Stamping Ground cover, and just, you know, just kind of like remaining present as such.
Yeah.
Because I think that was like a really important thing through the lockdown for a lot of bands was how do you stay present if you're not on your normal touring circuit every year? But when you think about it, there's a lot of artists that don't have that normal touring circuit, whether they're huge or whatever case it is. But they always stay present because they're always on social media, content, press. And I think
you've got your own podcast as well, don't you?
Yeah, and we've decided to carry on doing it as well, because we were starting it as kind of like a way to just, interact with people and kind of keep that, meeting element still there, from like the touring side of things where you're kind of just chatting about stuff or whatever it is. But we ended up just enjoying it more than we thought we would. And I was like, well, let's keep this going, and we'll just kind of break it up between the members. Like, I don't know, if Ben knows someone that he thinks would be cool, like he goes off and does it. So we're going to keep it quite broad and quite open.
I see H from Acid Rain does a similar thing. He just reaches out to his idols or whatever like that, But did you ever get fed up of picking up the guitar?
It was prime Erebos time, to be honest. I think that was when like we were really pushing, to write as much as we could. And I think because I'm fortunate enough to have a home studio set up, and so does Ben. And I think by the time we got to the end of the pre-production of Erebos, I think we had something ridiculous, like a folder full of like 20 to 21 songs or something. And it was just like, well, you've been bored, haven't you?
So it's you then? Are you the guy that sends the other guys in the band riffs at 4 o'clock in the morning saying, well, wait till you hear this riff, this is the best one ever?
No, I'm not, weirdly. I'm the guy who just comes out of nowhere and just says, I've got 7 songs. Like, it's just like, where have you been for the last 4 months, Ash? I've got 7 songs, guys. It don't fucking matter where I've been.
Excellent. So see some of the extra songs that you said, do you think they'll ever see the light of day, or are they just in a folder on your computer or whatever like that?
So we kind of, when we get to the point where like, because we weren't meeting up for a while because of the lockdown restrictions, when they were like super tight, and we were just writing on our own. So I was on my own and Ben, and that folder of song was like compiled between us.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of bits in the song our bassist highlighted as soon as he listened to that folder. And the first thing he said was, I can tell which songs you've written and I can tell which songs Ben's written. And I was like, oh dear, that's not good, is it? And he was just like, well, no, it's too different. You need both of them together to make a Venom Prison song. So we got together, opened up all the recording projects, and then we just started Frankensteining stuff. I was like, oh, I love that riff there. Like, does that work in that song? And he's like, yeah, let's put it there. And we literally were just able to just sit there and just move stuff around. And, if we wanted to repeat a phrase or whatever it was, we spent like ages doing that as well. And then, because I had this question asked the other day of like, oh, am I someone who like religiously practices the guitar? But I'm more of a writer, if I'm honest. I enjoy the writing process a lot more. But the problem with that is there's a massive disadvantage to being that person, because you finally look at your calendar and go, shit, I've got 2 weeks till the studio. I can't play a single song. Like, I can't play a single song. What the fuck am I going to do? And but the difference is, even when I walk into the studio, same as Ben's exactly the same as me. And we're still writing as we walk into the studio, even if the songs are finalized. Like I said to Scott straight away the day we walked in, I said, I have no attachment to if you want to change things in these demos. Like if you want to scrap a bit, or you want me to double a bit, or you want to put this, I'm still writing. Yeah. So then the disadvantage is I'm there like trying to go, what the fuck was that riff again? But that's the way I've always been. So I kind of stuck to it,
Yeah. Well, you kind of led on to my next question. The band seems like fairly settled on its band members for the last couple of years now, at least with the core of the band being together for a number of years then. But how do you keep it all together? Like, because everybody's got their own personal tastes in music. So how do you keep it all together when negotiating what stays in a song and what goes out of a song? Like, do you have a vote, or Do you have that fisticuffs in the studio? Do you have the blood on the walls? Or
well, you know what, like, it's mad because in other bands it's definitely not been like that for me in my case, but in Venom Prison it's always dealt with well. Like, it's always, someone will always reason with why. And it's also a big factor of that, because Ben writes so much and I write so much, I trust his judgment in a lot of things. Yeah. And if there's something that I've written and there's a section that I'm a bit like, yeah, I do like it, and then Ben's like, I'll tell you why it doesn't work, and I'm like, no, that's good. Like, I needed to hear that. Like, you know, and you'll normally say, I just think you would always just say, like, it's not the best section you've done, and I'm like, right, well, that just makes me want to go and do it again. So it is the best section I've done, and it's just, we're really easy like that. Or if there's something that like Ben will add in a song or something, and I'll just be like, whoa, that's just too much.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, oh, it is too much, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm saying it's definitely too much. And he trusts that, you know, like, he trusts the fact that he thinks like, oh, maybe that is too much. I'll go and ask Ash, and I'll go, yeah, it is too much. And it's just like, it's just that honesty. And like, I think we've always had that. And I think that's kind of why the band members have, like, you know, the four of us now, we've had, it's only really drummers, you know, drummers that have changed. Like, the four of us have kind of been there from the start, and I think we all work really well together, and we all get each other. And even on our disagreements, you know, there'll be times where I'll disagree with something, but that other person will basically come back and reason with it so much to the point of why I might be wrong, and then I'm like, yeah, no, I get you, yeah, like, actually, yeah, fair point.
Who's the one that goes in a huff?
I think we've all got it. I think, but it's all in, like, everyone's got a really different way of dealing with it. Like, I think Ben always knows when I'm in like, even in the studio, he knows when I'm in a huff, because I'll normally just be like, I'll look at him and he'll like, just like nod, and I'll go, yeah, I'll be back in a second. And I just like, I'll just go and walk off for like a minute, and I'll literally like walk. There were moments in the studio where like there were bits that, it was no one, it was me. Like, I was just getting so wound up with certain like sections, and like Ben would look at me and just nod, and I would just be red in the face or something. And you just nod, and I go, yeah, I'm gonna go out for a minute. Like, and I just go for a walk, come back in, walk through that door, and go, tell you what, I was fucking fuming then. I'm better now.
So when you say I'll be back in a minute, that's for cue for everybody just to say, no, just leave him. Don't say a word. Don't look at him.
yeah, like, to be fair, like, I just like to I like to just walk out, you know what I mean? Just not walk out dramatically, but I'm like, yo, I'm probably going to go out and have a cigarette. Like, you know, just let me have my cig. Like, it'll be all right. Like, you know.
Cool. Thanks very much for that then. So as we've been saying, it's been a difficult 18 months, 2 years. Now, excuse me if I'm wrong, but did you ever think of doing like a virtual gig? Was it ever discussed? And if you didn't do it, were the reasons why you didn't do
it? When you say virtual, as in the live stream ones?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we did one for Bloodstock. Did like some collaboration with some I think it was like European Alliance or something. Okay. I can't remember what it was exactly, but we filmed a set for that. Yeah, like, I still haven't really got my thoughts on it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't think anyone in Venom Prison really has. Like, I think we kind of done it, and we went to the academy in Manchester, and we used all the lighting and the sounds, and it was, you know, the full works.
Yeah.
But it is an empty
I think
room.
that's where Ingested done it as well, wasn't it? When they done theirs.
Yeah, it would make sense. Yeah, they're friends of ours as well, so that would make sense. It is an empty room, and you know, I know there's cameras and like there's other people watching on the other side, but it is different. It is really different, and there's just moments where you're kind of like not sure if you're like really getting into it, and like your body's just not moving how it moves, and like everything's just a bit like, I don't do this normally. Like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
But you know, like I can't really, there's no words for it. I kind of said to the guys, if we did ever like revisit something like that in the future, I wouldn't do it as a gig as such. I'd do it as more of a creative video, where like it'd be like a live, you know, performance as such, studio live performance.
Yeah.
But just maybe have like some real cool, I don't know, some form of way of making it a bit of, you know, theatrical or creative rather than a gig, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't quite got my head wrapped around it really at the moment, but there's certainly a way.
Yeah, I think Lick, a Swedish band called Lick, done that for Funeral Anthem, just done the studio stuff. But yeah, I can see the advantages and disadvantages of just like setting cameras up in your rehearsal room or something like that. But it doesn't show the true Venom Prison of what a live gig would look like. But again, it was another way of keeping your name out there.
Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? I think it is. But yeah, live shows are the way.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that will happen. That will happen. But before we go on to the live front, then, with Larissa being the vocalist of the band, it's well documented what the lyrics stand for. But does she also take care of all the lyrics for Erebos, or does she welcome contributions from the rest of the band? Like, would you ever think of doing like lyrics for Venom Prison, for example, for this album?
It's always been Larissa, if I'm honest. It's always been the same process as well. Like Larissa will speak to me about like a theme, like an overall theme for the album, and we'll kind of talk about that for a while, and then we'll start like dissecting stuff and reading like into like mythologies and really just kind of building up what like characteristics we want in the album as such. And then I think when we listen to it, when we listen to the pre-production, we kind of see, and if it that, you know, mythology kind of reflects to that sound. And I feel like, you know, how we would use like Samsara or like even Animus as such, they've always had that theme of Animus as, you know, was quite a hateful record, very aggressive. Samsara was a bit more technical and, you know, a bit more, I can't really describe it. It was a technical like death metal record pretty much, Samsara, wasn't it? But then you've got Erebos, which is kind of born again from chaos, and it just always has that sound, and we just always make sure that we're not just chucking anything on it, you know, we're not just going on Wikipedia and looking at any fucking name and going, yeah, that'll do. Like we do really, like we always do take a lot of care with like whenever we put in titles and like reading into things. But no, it's one of like, I really like that part of the writing process.
I mean, writing lyrics is a talent in itself. It must be a huge pressure off your shoulders with lyrics, because it must be an exceptionally hard thing to do, apart from if it's blood and gore's death metal, whatever like that. But this Venom Prison lyrics are far from blood and gore. So it's definitely a lot of pressure off yourself.
Yeah, it's like Larissa will finally get the lyrics together, and it'll be for a song that's already, you know, written. And then for Erebos, for example, she'd send me the lyrics. I'd go over all the lyrics, have a look at all like the phrasing and hooks and stuff. And then if there was a section that I would be like, that's your chorus there, I'd go into the pre-production song and highlight what the chorus would be.
Yeah.
And then like we'll start building it, and we just kept going back and forth, like switching and changing. Even when we got into the studio, we were like switching and changing constantly. And yeah, I think like the lyrics and like the way Erebos even works, there's a lot of like thought process going on like constantly with it.
Cool, thank you very much. You've also been signed to Censure Media now for just over a year. So how did that come about? How's the relationship been so far, and what do you hope Censure Media will do? I mean, to be on the same label as like Mayhem and Deicide and Aborted and stuff like that, hopefully the opportunities will now be huge for Venom Prison.
It's been great with Century. It has really been great. Like the moment we signed to them, they've been like super welcoming. They're always like emailing in and checking and helping with stuff. Like if we ever need help with, you know, getting announcements ready or releases ready, they're always like super on board and constantly back and forth with us. And they've been really good to us. And they've even said the other week we were talking about how we even, exchanged emails saying that we enjoyed working with each other. So I think it's, a good start to a relationship with a label.
Yeah. No, good. Well, I wish you all the best for it. But like I say, hopefully there'll be a lot more opportunities for you and expand your fan base. That's what being with Century Media is all about. So best of luck with that. But you've also released videos for Judges of the Underworld, Pain of Oisies. I can't pronounce that right. I think it's Oisies. And
it is Oisies.
Yay, and Nemesis. But I don't know, was it always planned to release 3 videos before the album release? Was there ever a thought of like doing 2 and then releasing 1 maybe like a month after the release? Or is it a case of always been 3 and then maybe in 4 months we'll do another video? Is that the end of the visual side of this album?
Definitely not the end of the visual side. We want to keep that going, if I'm honest. Yeah. I think it really does add that element to, yes, having a good music video. It's just an enjoyable watch. Like, I think when you stream music or, you're on your way to work or you're commuting or whatever, you are listening to it. But when you finally have that video in front of you and you can't do anything else but watch and listen to it, and if it's, done so creatively, I feel like it just adds the experience to a song. So I'm always kind of keen to keep that visual side going.
It must have been great to meet the band members as well, because you must have been like, who are you again? What is it? What instrument is it you play?
Yeah. Oh, it's just, it was weird. Even the studio was weird. Like, we were just always like going up in different groups as such. Yeah. It was like, Joe, Ben, me. Then it was like Ben, Larissa, me. Then it was me, Ben, Jeff. Then, and then on the last day, everyone was there. Like, it was, but no one did anything on the last day. It was bizarre. I was like, what's going on?
Good stuff. Good stuff. Listen, I've only got a couple of questions. I know your time's valuable and things, and I know you've probably got 101 interviews going on at this time at the moment. But the objective for a band of your size then is to tour as much of the world as possible. And I'm presuming with you being Century Media, you'll hopefully get that opportunity to do so. But how do you see playing gigs further afield in Europe and the world turning out this year?
That is a tough question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just so hard to answer now, isn't it? Like, I think today I was scrolling through Twitter, maybe yesterday, there were a few more tours cancelled and all postponed to 2023, I think. I've seen a couple.
Copy. It's like copy 2022 and paste 2023.
Yeah, I said this in an interview the other day. Like, I find it really hard at the moment for us to kind of, like, we've got the festivals booked for the summer, but I find it really hard to commit to booking a tour right now, where we had one in October that just, I can't remember when it originated, but it ended up moving to October, then something else. And it's like, I just don't want that build up anymore. Like, especially as like the band's always like, oh yeah, 3 weeks till tour, I wonder. And then it's like, nope. And then it happens again. And then it happens again. And it's really deflating, especially when you're trying to like be creative and keep, making,
you've also got to all meet up and rehearse as well. So that's everybody's time and travel and fuel costs as well, because you're all far apart.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's one of those things where I think the band's in a really good place with the creativity and, making creative content. And we've got a lot of plans for Erebos to support it, after release. And I feel like we're in a good place creatively at the moment. So I think throwing dates on something that inevitably will get postponed this year if things are already moving to 2023.
Well, who knows? I mean, you look at a band like Ingested, as we spoke about them like 5 minutes ago. They're over in America just now. Napalm Death are over there.
There's quite a few in America right now, isn't there?
Yeah, so you just don't know. I think a lot of foreign bands are finding it hard to get into the UK now because of Brexit, and I don't know if they have to apply for visas and stuff like that. It's all these additional costs now. But who knows?
Yeah.
But concentrating on the UK, like Bloodstock, for example, with them just concentrating on the UK bands, I think it's also shown fans like how strong the UK metal scene is. I mean, it was still packed out. Everybody still had a brilliant time. For us, Tortured Demon, Ashen Crown, King Witch, they took the place by storm. But were there any bands at Bloodstock last year that kind of took you by surprise? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Do you know what? I can't remember who. Higher Power played, and I watched them, but I've also been friends with them for quite some time. And it was just, I'd never actually seen the band. I've been friends with them for years, even before Higher Power, but somehow I've never actually seen their band live, I don't think. And I think that was the first time at Bloodstock.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool because it was cool because, you know, we knew each other through bands before, like Venom Prison and Higher Power and all that. And it's like they're on the main stage of Bloodstock. I know them since I was like 17 years old. We've played in like the smallest places to like 4 people and all that. And then I'm like, that's really cool. Like their band, as my mates are doing that, I'm doing that. And I don't know, something about it was pretty cool. Like I was telling the guys in Venom Prison, I was like, that is sick. But I think there's more of an emotional connection there than actually going by like, oh, who did I see at Bloodstock? But
that was also your first gig in about 1.5, 2 years as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Damnation Fest was the last one before that.
Yeah,
so
that was what.
You're the only one here then. Who made the most mistakes?
What? Damnation? Or
no,
Bloodstock?
at Bloodstock.
Right. See, now we got in-ear monitors. I can hear everything.
Right.
I thought that it was really good. And I thought everyone's really good. And then our bassist was like, that's the worst that I've ever played. But weirdly, when we were playing, I was like, oh, it sounds really good. But like as soon as he got off, and I was like, after that, I just thought, I'm not thinking about it anymore. So I don't even know. I didn't even think about anyone else. I was just like, oh, I didn't think that.
Listen, I bet you playing Bloodstock was a bit different than playing Glastonbury.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. We played twice at Glastonbury in one day. Can you
didn't
believe
get
that?
Any beer bottles thrown at you, did you?
No. But this is a weird thing. We played at 4 in the afternoon, yeah, and then we played at 3 in the morning. Like, yeah, exactly. That's how I felt. Like, so I don't know if you know the story of like Glastonbury.
No.
So we're in the backstage, yeah. And I'm just sat there, and this lady comes round, and she like looks at us and goes, "I think my husband would." Craig Charles.
Yes.
Yeah, and he just comes out, and then he's like, "Oh, I'll come and watch you lot later." And I was like, "If I had a quid for everyone that said that to me in my life, you know, I'd be a millionaire by now." And then I like looked to my right, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like he's actually there. And then he just went back to DJing then, and I was like, oh, that's mad. And then about 12 at night, they were like, oh, here's like a gazebo tent for you with a kettle in if you want to go to sleep and wake up at 3 a.m. and play another set. So, well, I couldn't sleep because at a festival. So,
yeah.
But I was next to the stage.
So I understood he watched the whole set as well, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. He was like, he's there. After we got off, he was saying stuff like to our drummer. He's like, I loved it and all this. And I was just like, that's fucking mad. But then we played the earache stage at like 3 in the morning. And then there were just like lots of people going wild and jumping on each other. I think it was more drugs than enjoyment. But I mean, I don't know many people that enjoy 3 a.m. Like,
I know.
Right.
I mean, I play extreme metal every Thursday for 3 hours, 8 to 11. That's enough for me. You know, I don't want to listen to it at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I'll go to bed.
yeah. Listen, I've got one last question. Before the internet, then, magazines and fanzines were the places to find out about new bands and trends, but now publications have been replaced with thousands of websites catering for all genres. So do you think that some of the passion's been lost, or do you think that the internet's been a good thing for music and a good thing for Venom Prison?
Oh, I have this dilemma all the time. I think it's such a hard division to make. I think everything is important because in some way everything is support, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's undeniable to say that the internet has ruined everything, because it's achieved so many things in a strange way as such. Like I was saying to someone the other day, I know people will say about Spotify and about the royalties or whatever, but I think about how many bands I discovered via Spotify as such is kind of incredible, because I would never have picked that many bands up, without that weird algorithm that's going on, and just finding things that are like similar to what I like, but maybe like a smaller band that I would never have stumbled across. And like that's a powerful tool when you think about it, for like music as such, being able to find someone's music.
Yeah.
But then obviously then you did have, like, I know there's magazine publications still going and like the web things, but then even that interlinks with the internet so well, like in ways of hosting it or promoting it as such. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Like, I don't think you can get rid of magazines and all that stuff, because I think it's needed. Like, it's still, if you think about, for example, like, well, most print as such, anything print stays, and that article can be used over and over again because it's never forgotten. Where a post, give it 10 years and it gets lost in the abyss of whatever it is. But you can pick your magazine up and go back to it, whether it's 10, 20 years old, and it doesn't change that bit of history of what happened then. But no, I've had this dilemma a lot where, like, I'm like, no, you can't.
I've had it with like so many people over at like a pint as well, but I've got cassettes in there, I've got my CDs behind me and stuff like that. I mean, I grew up in the era where CDs should be burned. It was cassettes and vinyl, and tape trading. But now, I mean, vinyl apparently has outsold CDs over the last couple of years. So there is still a bit of nostalgia back. I mean, bands are doing like a run of like 50 cassettes or 100 cassettes with every album and stuff. So it's great to see that, but it must be great for you to look on Spotify, for example, and see, we've got fans in Zimbabwe or something like that, so you wouldn't have been able to do that 30 years ago. So it's a double-edged sword, I would say.
Yeah, it is. Like, you can't have a better presentation than a good packaging for a vinyl. Like, with the inlay, and like you pull that inlay out and it's got everything in the lyrics, and sometimes it has band photos or whatever it is, and like even the variant of the vinyl, like you can't, like, as helpful as Spotify is, it still can't replicate that. And I think that's why it'll always be collectors. I think the internet is great and it's an amazing tool, but it doesn't hold value like something as a vinyl.
I totally agree. But listen, I just have to ask, what guitar did you use for the recording of Erebos then? What's the setup that you use, your pedals and amps and things? What's your guitar of choice?
So I only used one guitar. So this was the least equipment me and Ben have ever used on a Venom Prison record. We shared one amp and we had one guitar each, and we used the same pedal board.
Right.
And the only difference.
So what brought about that decision then?
So Scott was with us for ages. We were dialing in tones for ages, and our guitars are quite different. Ben was using his like old Charvel with a maple neck, and I was using my Jackson King V, which they are different. They're different woods. They sound different. And even with the amp settings as such, my gain was on 4, and I think Ben's was on like 4.5, and that was the only difference between our sounds. But Scott said the way we play sounds so different from each other. It was like that was what was making the tone to it as such. So we were like, there's no point fucking around and adding all like this madness onto it and going like 50 overdrive pedals and stuff. He was just like, no, that sound will be you playing. And he literally like drilled takes into us as such. Like, I'm sure we spent like hours on some sections where he was like, I'm not letting you drop in, you do that section. And I'm like, what? He's like, you're not dropping in on that, you are doing the whole section. So I'm there like, fuck me. And he's like, I'll finish it, and you'll be like, that was good. And I'm like, yeah, it was good. He was like, but I don't want good, it needs to be perfect. And I was like, oh fuck, here we go again.
I suppose there's also less to carry in and out of a gig as well. But what was I going to say? Is it a 6 or 7 string guitar you've got?
Six.
Have you ever thought about 7?
No, everyone always tells me I should play a 7, but like I kind of just grew up playing like on a 6 string, and like nothing ever changed any of the bands I was in, and I was still doing everything I wanted to do. And I mean, I don't personally, like, I know people can do some mad shit with all these strings, like, you know, 8, 9, 12, however many they have on there, but I've just always gravitated. I've never kind of toyed with the idea, if I'm honest. I just like playing guitar. That's it, pretty much.
Good stuff. Well, I hope you play guitar for a long, long time, and I hope Venom Prison get to the heights that they want to get to. Hopefully this will be a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job rather than the one that you've got. But listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Like I say, my colleague Rick is in the middle of reviewing the album just now, so that'll come out in Moshville Times. I'll continue to play you on the radio as well as 1 or 2 other DJs as well. We'll certainly do our bit to promote Venom Prison, and hopefully we'll see it in the live environment. Remember Glasgow as well, just remember Scotland. A UK tour is not just England, by the way, but if you come to Glasgow, then I'm sure we'll catch up in Glasgow as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Ash.
Thank you for having me as well.
No worries at all. Thank you.